Let's start off by saying hypnosis is kind of hard. Well, at least it's hard to get right. It's one of those things that's actually surprisingly easy to get into, but surprisingly hard to master. So it's not always easy to create things that work for everyone and things that work every time. There's so many people that will come to me and say, it's just impossible for me to be hypnotized. They say it just doesn't work, or that nothing really happens, or maybe they feel a little bit of sensation. But it's nothing like the hypnotist ever says. I mean, the hypnotist might say 100 times more powerful, and it certainly doesn't feel like 100 times. Perhaps you have been in that situation before. I mean, you probably have been, because most subjects are this way. It's only that small percentage of people, I don't know what percentage it is, but I do know it is a minority, that experience every single suggestion at this level. There are many that would love to get there, but I must ask you, do you really want to be there? Because that type of person is not just more easily hypnotizable. They have certain characteristics about them, certain traits. These people have a different purpose in life than you might. I don't know about you, but I believe that all people have a certain purpose. However, it is not always readily apparent. In fact, none of us ever really understand our purpose. So I would like to ask you, the listener, right now, does being that hypnotically suggestible sound like it helps your purpose? Of course, it's not some matter of other people being more brainwashed than others. That's a totally separate discussion. All people are on their own paths and are influenced in different ways. They are reached in the way that they are reached. But I think that you want to be really susceptible, but you still want just enough control left to be able to cancel it out if things go a little too far. I think that this is the main thing that is preventing people from going into a state of trance. Of course, that doesn't mean everyone, and of course, that may not mean you, because everyone is so particular, so different and unique, and that means different techniques will work on different people. And for most people, I think they need to be felt into and understood to really go into that state of comfort of allowing your mind to let go. There are so many reasons that we have our own hypnotic and non-hypnotic patternings. But I hope that some of this explanation helps to clarify what's going on with you personally. Though I must admit, I cannot solve whatever is going on with you. I think it is solely up to you. I mean, there's hypnotists out there that could figure out anyone. They are absolute geniuses like that. That's not where my particular genius lays. These people are admittedly rare. I don't think that you and I will bump into one of them. All I'm saying is that if you want to know what's going on with you hypnotically that's preventing your trance, you gotta figure this out yourself. Because no one is coming to save us. The great thing, though, is that just you listening to this right now is training you to be more open-minded, thoughtful, and aware of what's going on with you, But not just that. You're probably quite used to hearing me do hypnosis on you, and you'll find this quite hypnotic. In fact, it's hard for me to talk about these things without speaking in that hypnotic tone that I have. Which brings up another point. Are you really aware of when you are going into trance? I mean, there's those points where you're driving down the highway and for a minute or so you go into a trance. Maybe for hours you go into a trance. You're still aware. You're not sleepy, hopefully. But the time seems to slip away. At least you can't really remember what happened at those times. There were cars that passed, or you passed cars. There was trees, highways, signs, roads, and not much else. You don't think of it as trance. And that's what I want your experience of trance to be, so that you could be still walking around, going about your day, and still experiencing those lower depths of the mind. And this is what a movie is intended to do for you. Not only do you feel things, you see, you hear things, you are entertained by the movie, but it brings you into its world, into a sort of trance. But we wouldn't call it that. And so, at its best, I think that trance could be natural, like that. And so it's important for you to identify what you really want. Is it this traditional sort of hypnosis thing? You know, a man dressed like a magician. Maybe he's got a stopwatch. Maybe you like it to happen like it does in the movies. Because, of course, it's not always like the movies. I truly want you to understand what's going on with you so that you can have your discussions with hypnotists or discussions with subjects. And once you figure it out, there is that wonderful aha moment. It's that moment where the subject says, I thought I could never be hypnotized. I tried so much until it finally worked. And that experience is bliss. When you go into that really deep hypnotic state, there's no way to really describe it. The nerve system slows down. You are on another frequency of existence. Yes, your consciousness goes to a different place. That means that it's aware of different things, and it's also doing different things to your body. I don't think I could describe a better sensation than that. If you've ever experienced it, you know that it is pure bliss. And for me, it's about the creation that can come from that. It's about the possibility to create whatever you want. It's that experience of creating what you want through a state of bliss. Who could blame you for going after something like this? I think you should. Let's see if we can figure that out, so that you can experience anything you want, get anything you want, be anything you want, and achieve it through bliss. I'm going to speak mostly of content creation, but this all applies to in-person sort of hypnosis as well. Before you ask yourself, is there something wrong with me? Ask yourself, is there something not right about the content that you're listening to? Because most content will not work for most people. Most hypnosis content only actually works on the most susceptible subjects, the really easy ones. And I know they say anyone can do hypnosis, but that really just means that anyone could learn a script and hypnotize easy subjects. And in today's fast-paced world, I would say that people are less susceptible than ever to hypnosis. I mean, not only is our attention spans decreasing, but we all put this wall up in front of our minds because we know how many advertisers and scammers and manipulators are constantly trying to take hold of our minds. That makes us defensive. It's a whole other discussion of what makes a hypnosis file actually work and not work. But you can just ask yourself if the content is simply not it for you. Maybe there's another person or another file that will work better for you. Sometimes you just don't like a certain technique, or a certain suggestion doesn't feel right to you, doesn't make you feel comfortable. And that's totally fine. That is totally normal. But real quick, there's a couple of things that will tell you if it's going to work right away. First is whether they direct things in terms of the present moment or happening in the future. Like if I was to give you the suggestion that you will become smarter, at first that might seem like a good suggestion, especially if you're in a hypnotic state. I mean, simple as that, right? Well, there's a number of very unoptimized things about that sentence. That's putting it really lightly, because I don't think that that suggestion would work at all, except on subjects that are both easy and quite intelligent already. There's that suggestion of you will, and that is an implication that something's going to happen in the future. The problem with that is that when we are working with hypnosis, we're working with the present moment, because that's the only thing that exists. It might blow your mind if you're not a meditator, but the past does not exist, the future does not exist, 2 nanoseconds ago does not exist. 1 nanosecond in the future does not exist. You are a 3D human, which means your consciousness exists in one single point of time, and that is called now. So if you want that suggestion to stick, you have to say, you are smart. I know it's as simple as that. It may seem like something so small, but it is huge. Because when we refer to things happening in the future, they stay in the future. And when the future comes, it's not actually the future, it's now. And that thing that you said is in the future, it's still in the future. And this will repeat over and over again continually. Do not underestimate this. The present moment is everything. Now, it's not just about the language, but the context. It would be great to say, you will become smarter when you do your test. Think about your math test now, and imagine calculating the numbers correctly, understanding the concepts behind the formulas, and comprehending what it all means. That kind of suggestion has moved you into the present moment, imagining that the future is now. After all, your imagination is a preview of the future. Now, it doesn't mean that the "you will become smarter" suggestion is a bad suggestion. It just means that most subjects will need it a little bit more ideal to be at its maximum effectiveness. Then there's the subjective parts of the content, like, do you like this person's style? Do you like their attitude? What are their intentions? Are you trying to find a therapeutic thing or an erotic thing? a self-improvement thing? Is there a strong masculine or feminine aspect of this that you're really into? There's so many things that will affect it for you. Now, some might say, oh, I'd like to listen to subliminals because then my conscious mind will not interrupt. And that can work. Except subliminals don't work. Let me explain. The effectiveness of subliminals is so much smaller than the effectiveness of a regular dedicated hypnosis file that I don't consider it effective enough. I mean, do you want something that works with 15% effectiveness or 100% effectiveness? The great thing about subliminals is the placebo effect. Don't be afraid of that word, placebo, because placebo is a good thing. It is that one thing that all philosophies believe in, but we all call it something else. We call it karma, law of attraction, resistance and persistence. We call it magic, a miracle, acts of God. And for many of the scientific community, it's called the placebo effect, or the nocebo effect, if it causes something negative. The great thing is that a placebo works even if you know it's a placebo. Isn't that incredible? I mean, you can make pretty much anything happen using the placebo effect. That's why the gold standard of scientific studies is the double-blind, placebo-controlled test. The great thing about subliminals is that you can listen to it doing anything and no one would question it. You can layer it over any of the nice sounds that you like. And most importantly, you can dedicate it to a focus on something. Let's say you wanted to grow your beard thicker, so you were listening to a beard growth subliminal, which will work, by the way, as shown by the placebo effect, which is so powerful that we have to do controls to get it out of our experiments. While listening to that subliminal, you are consciously choosing to have thoughts, feelings, sensations that relate to your own personal feeling of having a big, thick beard. Maybe you associate it with masculinity, strength, fatherliness. Maybe you associate it with that feeling of growth, vitality, or expansion. Maybe you like to think of the new hairs sprouting thicker and thicker, and that's just a good feeling for you. And you can think about this throughout the entire subliminal, and you can think about it in your own way. And maybe there's parts in the background that relate to that, but they don't get in the way of any of that. Perhaps subliminals are perfect for people that like to do their own thing without too much instruction impeding it. I mean, we can't count on the instructions from the subliminals actually being any good. Just like I explained earlier, the instructions are not always worded as they could be best worded. Or worse, they could be using negatives. Like if the hypnosis file says, don't stress, or don't fear, or relax from all the difficulties and stresses of the day. That might work for some people, but a lot of us are going to get triggered by that, because these are negative words. So a subliminal might ensure that even if the hypnotic language is not perfect, it's still going to work for you because you are consciously dedicating yourself to that one particular thing. and the energy flows where the attention goes. Simple as that. If you focus on something with intention, a little hint of positivity, and a big force of precision, it must come to be. There are also some experts who create things based on frequencies. There are audio files, you find them all over the internet, of a certain hertz, Hz, or frequency. And they combine them with nice musical tracks and sometimes affirmations, but not always. These are these healing vibrational sounds. And each frequency has a bit of a different tone, of course, a different flavor that does something different to the body. Lots of them very similar, of course. And overall, the frequencies go from relaxed focus. Maybe if you go higher than that, it's like intense focus. And if you go a little lower, it starts to become dreamy. And when you hit the lowest, it's like pure emptiness, nothingness, like completely unconscious. And there is some debate on the exact usage for the different frequencies, but getting your brain into them and aligning with them is a fantastic thing. And if a subliminal is combined with this, you can consciously direct that as the file that gets you the effects you want, even if there's no suggestions in it for that. Your intention matters, and when you intend something, the creation that comes from it can look a lot like what you intended. Now let's talk about allowing someone else into your mind. It's understandable that such a thing could make one apprehensive, because at our core, we need to be self-regulating to some level. And for many of us, we had a childhood where we had to self-regulate a lot more than a child should need to. After all, how do we adapt to situations that are not in our favor? We have to self-adapt to that. And perhaps you ran into situations where adapting to someone else did not turn out well. This is normal and natural. I expect all people have had this experience. You can't just trust everyone 100%. You would run into trouble very quickly, of course. So there is that part of your brain now, programmed in to protect you from automatically following every suggestion of others. And that is a good thing. That is a fantastic thing. We need to give thanks and appreciation to this part of us that protects us. And to do that, we simply give awareness to that part of us. So that when it comes up and it stops a hypnotic suggestion from working, you say, hey, I recognize you. I see what you're doing. I know that you're protecting me. And in doing so, this part of you can finally let off. It's saying, oh, I'm recognized. Yes, you have to show this part of you that it has control, that it can step in any time that it feels uncomfortable. If it feels uneasy about it, it can step in. Yes, just the recognition of that will kind of ironically make it go away. Because you are trusting first in yourself. And then don't force it. Allow suggestions to work as they work. And I know you really want to make the hypnosis work, but there's a reason that it doesn't. You are being protected by a part of you, so let it protect you. Whatever in particular the hypnotist said to you, it may not be really meant to work on you. Maybe there's something about this that isn't for you. Maybe it's just not your thing, or it's not in the exact way that it needs to be for you, and that's fine. Of course, you may or may not have these psychological things going on. It could be something else in particular for you. And it likely is, because we are all so individual and unique. Now, many of us think of the psychological parts of why you might not be going into hypnosis easily, but I think one of the most important parts is the physiological parts, the body. After all, your emotions and thoughts, most of it actually stored in the body. Yes, I know your brain organizes it, but it does so by connecting it through the entire nerve system. A nerve system that is constantly reading what's going on within each part of the body, each organ. Every single millimeter of every finger, every muscle fiber. And then the way that the nervous system interacts with all of the bacteria natural of the body. It's complex, but it is in the body. So there's a few basics to check off to make sure that you are physically able to be hypnotized, able to focus in an optimum way. And perhaps this type of hypnosis you want involves relaxing and letting go. It doesn't have to, but it's usually so much nicer when it does involve those things. And you need your body in its optimum order in order to do that properly. And that means achieving the basics. Staying hydrated, eating good food, getting good sleep. I know, it's not exciting, but we all know it works. People that are doing more optimum things with their body are easier to hypnotize. They are functioning properly, tuned in, hydrated, well slept. They are feeling well. Simple as this: drink some fresh juice, go for a walk, stretch, and then listen to some hypnosis, and watch how incredibly effective it becomes. And that's only the effect of half an hour. Literally just 2% of the day. Imagine the compound effect of doing that every day, once a day, because it all adds together. Maybe you throw in some hard exercise every second day, or even third day. You end up with not just a more easily hypnotizable mind, but a lot of fantastic knock-on effects. You live in better health and happiness, and all of your goals become more achievable. It's all a big formula, and everything that you do adds to the experience or takes away from it. Now, what is the best format for you? Is it audio, or is it reading? Or is it even video? Because for me, text hypnosis works quite well. I think for most, audio seems to work best. Maybe I'm just visual, or I find that the audio might interrupt with my mind, or perhaps it's because I can go at the exact pace that I need to go. All I know is that it works best for me, so what works best for you? I think reading books is a fantastic way to enhance your experience of hypnosis. No matter if you experience it by audio or by reading, because reading can train your brain to go into that brainwave level that is a bit lower. And we want that lower brainwave level because it is closer to hypnosis. It moves your natural state a little bit lower. It gets you used to it, and then your brain wants to go down a bit all the time. There's also that effect of the left to right motion of reading, and not many people talk about this. I find that fascinating, but during REM, rapid eye movement sleep, that's when you dream. Your eyes are going left to right, back and forth, back and forth. And this is what you're doing when you're reading. You read from one side to the other, and you switch back, and you do it again. You do this continuously over and over again. And because you are looking in both directions, it signals to both sides of the brain. It wakes up both sides. It encourages the brain to begin processing things using all of the brain power that it has. This encourages you to do the same thing under hypnosis. You are learning to learn when you read. And hypnosis is learning. Let's finish off by talking about your expectations, because I think a lot of hypnotists, and maybe even subjects, set this strangely high bar for what should happen under hypnosis. They say that they should be in control of your body, or they say that you should experience something at 1,000 times level, when it just doesn't make any sense. You might be trying to get outlandish things to work on you immediately, and then you might feel like, oh, I'm not such a good subject. I think that's preposterous. Remember that anything is possible, truly, but be reasonable with your expectations. You may have some inner or outer work to do. You may need to find different content or a different creator. You may need to experience it in person, or at least live with somebody. You may need text or audio. You might need someone to touch you physically. And most likely it could be your own unique thing. And maybe a combination of the things that I've discussed here today. I want you to figure out what's going on with you, because knowing what's going on is the most important part and will help you move forward. If you want to listen to my hypnosis files, I have a self-improvement, self-transformation website, transformhypnosis.com, and you can find an awesome selection there to create anything that you desire. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know what's going on with you in a comment below. Have you figured it out yet? Let me know if you have or not. Let me know if this has helped. Share some tips for others, because these discussions that you create there, they help out a lot of people. So please leave a comment.